Hey everybody, welcome into the back room. I'm Andy Ostroy. Today's guest is Joe Trippi. We shall chat with Joe in just a second, but first, thank you for tuning in. We appreciate you listening, and we'd love to hear your comments. So email us at backroomandy@gmail.com and or post on our social media, and we'll read some feedback next time. And if you like the podcast, please follow or subscribe and rate and review, and you'll be notified every time we post a new episode. So Joe Trippi, he's a pioneer in bringing campaigns into the digital age. As national campaign manager for Howard Dean's presidential campaign in 2004, his vision of using the internet to connect directly with supporters transformed the way campaigns have been waged since. He currently serves as a senior strategist for several nonprofit and corporate clients. He's a senior advisor to the Lincoln Project and a senior advisor to Michigan Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson. He began his political career working on Ted Kennedy's presidential campaign in 1980 and has since led efforts on a number of presidential, gubernatorial, Senate, and congressional campaigns, including Representatives Ro Khanna, Kweisi Mfume, former California Jerry Brown, and former Alabama Senator Doug Jones. Joe is also the host of the podcast That Trippi Show and the author of The Revolution Will Not Be Televised, Democracy, the Internet, and the Overthrow of Everything. He's also served as a political commentator and analyst for MSNBC and NBC, CBS, Fox, and CNN. Joe, welcome into the back room.
Great to be with you.
So I want to go back in time a little bit before we get to the current political landscape. You were Howard Dean's 2004 presidential campaign manager. The infamous Dean Scream occurred after he lost the Iowa caucuses, and it all but helped to end his run for the White House. His critics said he was crazy and weird, and it was hard to recover from that. When you look back on that period in time, and you think about the last 10 years and the unconscionable things that Donald Trump has said and done, what comes to mind?
That what happens my experience has been that everything that came before makes everything else possible. So, the fact that they hounded Howard Dean out of the race for a scream makes everybody sort of more immune to. I mean, it's sort of like, wow, that shouldn't have happened. So therefore, the next time somebody does something that's a little, that the press goes after them on, it makes it less powerful, more numb. And look, that was 20 years ago. So. I just think a lot of things have happened since, but it's sort of like this whole thing. It's like Gary Hart getting caught on the monkey business makes it easier for Bill Clinton during his campaign when the rumors came out about Paula Jones and Jennifer Flowers and some of the other. It's like no, we made a mistake of throwing Gary Hart out because of that. We're not going to, we're not. It makes it less of a problem, less of a hurdle for the next guy. But Trump that's the really scary thing about what Trump's done. I mean, there's lots of scary things about what Trump's done, but what's he making possible in the future? In other words, if we're all kind of numb and immune and it's now become boring and old, but that's why if this is boring and old, then what's the next, crazy thing that somebody's going to be able to get away with, or that will be look the other way, or enough Americans will look the other way. I mean, I think that's it. It's that, the Democratic Party, the real difference was people knew that, that I think that Howard Dean was a great candidate, but too far to the left, I think, in a party that was becoming more pragmatic about wanting to stop George W. Bush, that the more we were out there fighting against the war and for gay marriage at the time, which was back in 2000, like that's what they thought was crazy, that we were, that we were way out there. I think when we made mistakes, the party apparatus decided that they should do something about it and stop us. Which, by the way, when Biden did not perform well in his debate, the party leadership got together and decided, whether for the good of the party, good for the nation, but decided, no, we've got to move in here. What's the difference really is that for 9 years, no one, not one single real true voice or leadership position within the Republican Party, no matter what he has said, no matter what he's done, has stepped forward. I mean, a few, Cheney, Liz
Kissinger.
Cheney in particular, Kissinger. Yeah, I mean, there are a few, but the leadership of the party, no, they decided, no, we're going to enable this.
Yes.
We're gonna protect this. We're gonna make sure that he's still standing. That is not, has never been the instinct in the Democratic Party, and frankly, it never been the instinct in the Republican Party until Trump.
Sure. Well, if you go back to Watergate and the Republicans that got together and visited Nixon and said, leave or else. That's not
that's what I'm saying.
Today.
So that's always been. So if you say, what was the biggest change between the scream and now, it's that. It's that, look, whether I didn't necessarily agree with the leadership of the Democratic Party in 2004 when they shut us down, but that's what happened. That's what the reaction was. That's what the reaction to Biden was. That's what the reaction to Nixon was. I mean, some of it, not the same. It's not fair to compare the Biden reaction with what the Republican Party did with Nixon. But I'm just saying that was the instinct, and that I think what's happened is we're now entering the age of personality cult, and not the age of parties don't have any control, almost no control anymore. I think we may have started to see that a little bit with Obama in 2008. If the party had total control, Hillary Clinton would have been the nominee. They were all, it was only when he won in Iowa and then magically and mystically leadership started saying, well, maybe this could work. And they started to move from her to Obama, that the party still sort of had some control over what was obviously the most charismatic communicator, in the party, who was just taking over without really a need for the party infrastructure to roll into place, but it did. And now in the Republican Party, there's not those guardrails are all gone. And I think that's sort of scary about what that means about the future in terms of where that party goes, if it even exists at the end of whatever ends Trumpism, because I don't think it's going to go away just because he's defeated.
The whole phenomenon is fascinating because you and I both are clearly old enough to remember when a Dean Scream or a George Allen Macaca or Gary Hart and Bill Clinton, but now we have an adjudicated rapist and convicted felon at the top of the ticket, and that's okay. That's okay.
Yeah.
But why is it okay? How much of that is the media to blame for normalizing that behavior? I mean, you think about the double standard that exists, for example. Joe Biden had a debate that was disastrous. It's all anyone talked about for 3 weeks. Donald Trump has a horrible debate, talks about Haitians eating dogs and cats and Hannibal Lecter, and a couple of days later, like nothing. Right? Not a big deal.
Yeah, well, I think it's kind of like this slow slide into the abyss, right? I mean, it's the normalization of, not just the press, but I mean, first of all, when you have Republican leaders who are saying, hey, this is great, everything's fine. Oh, I didn't read the tweet, I haven't read it.
Right.
I'll look into it. That kind of stuff. It's the slow, and the press continuing to cover things like this is Bob Dole versus Kamala Harris. I mean, just a normal Republican.
Right.
Well, they say dogs and cats were eaten, and you say they aren't. So, although I thought these moderators did a pretty good job of challenging both of them, but obviously people go, well, they challenged Trump more. Well, like he is the biggest liar on the face of the planet to ever run for president.
That's not their fault, right? Like,
yeah,
if you get fact-checked more than your opponent, it's because you're lying and she's not.
Yeah,
like it's
so, but we need, you're right. None of that has really, I mean, it's like, oh, great. Thanks, guys, for doing it now. I mean, where were you for 9 years? I mean, not, and I'm not talking about David Muir or any one of them specifically, but I just think, because I thought they did a pretty good job. But it's been 9 years of like, look, it's all normal, guys. This is
look how long it took the media to call him a liar. I mean, he was mistruthing. I mean, all the words they used for years until they finally called him a liar.
But the normalcy bias is ingrained in all of us as Americans. I mean, that's the kind of the quintessential problem here, because, for 250 years, we've had two parties, or, and people saying like, they're going to end our future if you elect the Democrat or the Republican. It's been going on. And, guess what? Country's done pretty damn good. And so there's a lot of, I think, for the whole the 2016 election, I think way too many Americans thought, oh no, that can't happen here. There's no way someone like Donald Trump could be elected president. So they're not going to vote. They're not voting because like, hey, yeah, right, of course. Sure, they're going to say it's all coming to an end. It's not.
Yeah. I remember watching Italy with Berlusconi and saying like, my God, like, how do they let that guy run the country?
Oh, God, don't get me started there.
And Trump makes him look like Barney Frank.
Yeah. Well, I worked on Prodi's race when we defeated Berlusconi. When he was, we defeated him from re-election. And then, of course, governments change every 5 days. So he came back and won again. But it was amazing what he would get away with. And and we won. So I thought, well, like, that's not going to happen again. Well, no, it happened again here in the United States. That's what I'm saying. I mean, there's like this kind of slow, it should worry a lot of people about where does this go next? Because like I said, I don't believe this is going away with Trump's defeat. The MAGA will still be out there. Somebody else, J.D. Vance or somebody, will try to pick up the mantle. The quote, normal Republicans will still have been purged from the party and will have to win a primary that they cannot win. I mean, it's all going to, and that's if Trump, as he's going out, if we succeed in defeating him, doesn't, he's not going away either. I think January 6th could be much worse. Given where his head seems to be, that's a hard place to try to figure out. But I do think I've got grave concerns about where this all goes from here.
Forget the fact of what we've seen since 2016 to 2020 when he was president, how cray that 4 years was. Now you go to 2024. He was impeached twice. He tried to overturn an election, stage a coup. There was a deadly insurrection. He's got 4 indictments. He's a convicted felon. He's an adjudicated rapist. I mean, I can go on and on and on.
Yeah, right.
How and why is he still here, as powerful as he is? What is at the root of that? How did this happen, and how is it happening again?
It's like, look, I could make the case that if Barack Obama, on the night of November 2016, had gone out as the president of the United States, held a press conference and said, Donald Trump just stole this election from Hillary Clinton. He has stolen the election. We cannot let him take the White House, right? Urged people to come to a rally in Washington, D.C., in which he spoke and said, let's go up there to Capitol. And the entire Democratic Party was out there, senators and congressmen, saying, yes, they stole the election. Donald Trump did not win. Don't believe it. Now, there's a couple things here. When your president tells you that, again, these are people who believed in him, who hung on every word, just like many of us did with Barack Obama. Now, the difference is the Democrats did not nominate a whack job that would do that would actually go out and lie as president of the United States to not just to his people, but to the American people. And I'd like to think that had Barack Obama done that, there would have been Democrats in the Senate and the House who would have gone out and said, my God, I don't know what happened to Barack Obama, but he's out of his mind. Trump won.
Yes,
right?
and also a difference would have been liberals may have shown up at the mall to protest, but they would have probably all been wearing pink pussy hats. And then by 2:00, they would have said, hey, I got to go. I can't be late for my hot yoga appointment.
Yeah. So my point kind of is that at every step of the way, you first take that you've got the president of the United States saying this election was stolen. They stole it from me. His party then agrees, the vast majority of leadership agrees with that. You're a citizen in the United States, in your town, you voted for him, and your congressman and your president are telling you this story that the election was stolen. And in the meantime, the press is saying, on one hand, the Republicans are saying it's stolen. On the other hand, the Democrats, in other words, there was no blunt force within the media or, to contest it. As you said, it would be like there was allegations that there's no evidence to sustain. I mean, it's like, no, it's a freaking lie.
Yeah.
The election was not stolen. But as you said, that took a long time. So my point is that I think there's this normalcy bias, even today, when you say, democracy's on the ballot, it's literally the future of the country's at stake. I think there's still today millions and millions of Americans who hear that and say, nah, this is America. That just can't happen here. That's not going to happen here. He can't, you guys are making that up or you're just overreacting or whatever. And of course, the media then sort of reinforces that. And of course, your favorite Republican senator or congressman who's representing you comes out and says that.
Yeah.
Oh, come on. That's like, he was joking. He didn't, that's not what he said. I mean, it's just and again, the media doesn't call them on that. They just, okay. So, Lindsey Graham says he was joking and that's what they report,
Right.
So it's not a joke and elections have consequences and this one is going to be pretty consequential, particularly if Donald Trump can somehow find his way back into the Oval Office.
Yeah. When you were running Dean's campaign, you capitalized on what the internet could offer. You transformed how campaigns communicated directly with voters, how fundraising was done, and it was pretty groundbreaking. In what other ways has campaigning changed in the last 20 years?
Actually, it's been a disaster. I think the Democratic Party learned from the Dean campaign that you could raise a lot of money by emails. And that's essentially the only thing the Democratic Party learned for the most part. The Republican Party didn't need money. They have all these billionaires and guys writing big checks to W. W was the incumbent president. He had no problem raising money. What they learned was, no, you could connect directly with people out there and around the press, because that's what the Dean campaign had done. And so, in the Dean campaign, we had Blog for America with Howard. You'd get on in the morning and post something, and then 650,000 Americans would be on our blog that we created. And they'd all be, throwing out ideas or telling people what they were doing to help Dean get elected. And I would come on and go, Harry, that's a great idea. And Howard's going to say it tonight in his speech. It took like 12 years or so until I ever saw anybody do that. And his name was Donald Trump. And Twitter was his blog for America. And he would come on every morning, post something. 17 million Americans were on. He didn't have to build it. We had to build Blog for America. No, somebody else Jack Dorsey and a bunch of people at Twitter, all of us who were on Twitter, who created that platform. He's up there, and like 4 or 5 hours later, his campaign manager would come on and say, Harry, that's a great idea, and watch Trump tonight at the rally. And he developed a direct one-on-one with millions of people and held them in thrall to his cult of personality. And we never did that. I mean, that wasn't what Obama did. Obama did not have that. He had amazing charisma, attracted millions and millions of people, but it was 3 million people who gave him $500 million directly on because of the pleas he made via email and other things, and signed him up to organize for him. I mean, there are a lot of things that they did, but the first campaign since 2004 to get that direct connection thing was Donald Trump. It just blows my mind. And now with Elon Musk and X, one of the things I've decided to do was we have to have a different platform. We have to invent a new social network. And so I'm launching Sez.us. It's SEZ.us if people out there want to go check it out. But we are going to launch an alternative because the algorithm and to be held to the whims of one guy's rules who sits in his castle and decides who gets platformed and who gets checked off and who gets elevated with their divisive and angry rhetoric is destructive to what we're trying to do. What I was trying to do with the Dean campaign, which is to use the technology to give people a way to communicate and join together to make a difference. So I don't know if people want to. I'm sorry to plug my own commercial here, but Sez.us, SEZ.us. People should check it out.
Look, it is clearly something that needs to happen. And there are, competitors, threads. There was a lot who came and went and failed or whatever. Well, it is where people still tend to congregate. It's kind of like when you live near Tompkins Square Park in Manhattan and you still want to go to the park even though the junkies are there with the needles all over the place.
But, they all made the same mistake. They've all tried to clone Twitter or X. And that includes the algorithm that promotes all the anonymous hate attacks and stuff like that can all exist. So we're building something completely different. What I would say is that the other big sea change that's happened between 2004 and today is the right has become owners of media, and the pro-democracy side, we rent it. So Sinclair can have a station in just about every market in the United States, a local station, where the anchor and the reporters all report nightly that the economy's crap and Joe Biden's a disaster. Sure. And then we buy time on those stations. We buy ads. We rent to buy an ad saying, no, the economy's great or whatever. And then, of course, people, don't trust ads very much, but they trust their anchor, particularly their local anchors and reporters. And then late that night on the news, evening news, there's the anchor talking about how bad the economy, the recession's just around the corner.
Right-wing
and by the way, there's a caravan coming, and and then we wonder why is it that the economy's actually pretty strong, but everybody thinks Joe Biden is horrible on the economy? Well, guess what? They own the media.
Yeah,
I know we talk about the mainstream media. I'm not talking about it, but they own Fox. They own Breitbart. They own Sinclair. The chair of Sinclair just bought the Baltimore Sun.
Yeah. Well, there's an ecosystem that exists that is the envy of Democratic politicians, because it's not just about owning the outlets; it's what you do with them, and they've done that thing really well for decades now.
Right. And we keep waiting for the mainstream media to come in and save us. That ain't going to happen. They're like so fragmented and no one's watching anyway.
I want to get back to something you were mentioning before, because I think this is really important in terms of something that's occurred over the last 20 years or so. And that is when you say Donald Trump was great at going out and connecting directly with his followers and supporters the way you and Howard Dean and the campaign did, you're 100% right. And the thing to me that's happened in that 20 years is that while Republicans were doing that really well, Democrats were moving so far away from what used to be their core constituencies, the working class, white working class, black men, people in the rural America, the Southern Democrats. Where did they go? Like, they allowed that to happen because they were more concerned with the liberal elites. And at the same time, Republicans spoke to them in ways Democrats have not spoken to them in decades. How do we fix that?
Yeah.
Because that's really the problem.
Yeah. No, we have to have direct. That's what I mean. We have to. Well, first of all, we keep abandoning places. Look at, like, we ended the Iowa caucuses. Right. We said, no, we're not going to go there. Iowa's not going to be first anymore. I'm not making an argument for Iowa being first, second, whatever. But when you basically say to Iowa, oh, no, we're going to make South Carolina the most important place. It's just another place we've sort of, I learned this doing Doug Jones' race for the Senate in 2017 in Alabama, a place Democrats had not won in 25 years. Well, why was it that Democrats hadn't won in 25 years? It turned out mostly no one ever ran. I mean, we'd put we'd put up some poor sacrificial lamb with no money, and the Republicans would, and so it was like 67 to 28 was like the average, vote. And as soon as you put somebody real up in 2017, it turned out that Alabama was a place that it was going to be tough, but you could compete if you actually had some infrastructure there, which we didn't, and we barely won. And then 3 years later, we get, in a presidential turnout, with more people coming out, we don't have a chance. But if you look at, again, what are we doing right now? We're going to spend about $2 billion in like 6 or 7 states. Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania. Come on, but by now, how many cycles? So there's 44 states that really don't matter. How do you win Pennsylvania? Oh, well, Philly and Pittsburgh. Just get out all the votes we can in Philly and Pittsburgh, and the Republicans have to get out more of the votes outside of the cities, and we fight in the burbs. And anyway, that pattern goes on in Wisconsin and in Michigan.
And is that the most important thing now, is turnout? For years we've heard about the folks in the middle. Those are the guys we got to reach. I'm of the mindset that those people don't exist anymore. So this election is about Democrats need to get out more Democrats than Republicans are going to get out more Republicans.
At this stage, for the most part, it's turning out your vote. It's turning out the vote that's there. There are a couple of things that are going on, though, because I work with the Lincoln Project. We are seeing, we've named this group Dobbs Dads. There are Republican pro-life or kind of questioning where they are on abortion and reproductive rights, who have a daughter who's 12, 13, 14 years old, who always has, for her entire life since she was born, believed they were her defender. And they suddenly are really open to Kamala Harris, really open. I mean, these are Republican men who are starting to see, wait a minute, I've defended my daughter, and I just don't. I've kind of always been pro-life, or thought that was something, but you know what? No, I'm not. I'm going to look at Kamala Harris. That group they were not movable with Biden, and the reason was Trump had succeeded with that group on the strength versus weak thing. That he was the strong guy and Biden was too weak to stand up for and defend anything. In his mantra that reached them, she has in that debate, I think, showed it. He looked weak. She looked strong. She was, on the offensive. He was defensive or losing it. And he is starting to lose that group. They are starting to move to her. So it's not, there are persuadable. The other group in the Republican Party, are the group we call Red Dawn Republicans. These are Republicans who revere Reagan, who celebrate that George Herbert Walker Bush presided over the fall of the wall and the collapse of the Soviet Union, see Putin and Russia as a mortal enemy, and do not at all agree. And J.D. Vance put the exclamation mark on this. It was one thing with Trump saying, arguing about it, but when he picked J.D. Vance and it was clear that they had become totally kind of pro-Putin. I mean, we knew this from the beginning, any of us who'd been watching, but this group, that suddenly gelled for them, that that it's not the Republican Party that they grew up in, and they weren't sure about Biden, again, on the strength-weakness thing. But with Kamala, surprisingly, but it makes sense. They see her as stronger, and again with this debate performance, I think that group is coming into play. So I do think my own view has always been that this was a 46-53 race, that Trump was sort of stuck at 46, and that 53% of the country wasn't going to vote for them. Now, whether Biden got 46%, and what happened with the other 7, well, they don't vote, or they vote for the third party, or they, whatever. What's happened, I think, since Biden passed the torch to Kamala is Trump is still stuck at 46, maybe even eroding, given these groups that I'm talking about. I think it could easily be 45 or 44 be his ceiling. And then where's that rest of those, where the rest? Well, she's now nearing 50 because a lot of those people who were not going to vote, younger voters, are suddenly excited and energized. A lot of the people who are going to vote for third parties are suddenly, no, I've got a choice here and I'm going to vote for her. And you can see that as their third party vote erodes to near like 1 or 2 points combined, where it used to be 9 or 10 points combined between RFK Jr., West, and Stein. It's like minuscule. And so if he starts to erode a little bit, I still have always thought this was going to be 46-53. Biden in 2020 got to 51. Trump was at 46.7. I think we're headed to that same kind. I think potentially a higher number. I'm not saying 52, 53. I don't think it goes, I think in our polarized world, it's going to take time for the Trumpism thing to evaporate. I mean, to not evaporate, but to decline to something that's not competitive. But it will be competitive in this race, but I think it'll be like 45, 46 max %. And she's, I think it's not just about turning her own vote out. I think that's there. But I also think there's another point or two in these Dobbs dads and Red Dawn Republicans that could, and Dick Cheney coming out for her.
Sure. I want to ask you that.
Could tip that over.
If you were running her campaign and you got Liz Cheney and then you got Dick Cheney, would you be saying to Harris, this stuff is great, the media's going to love it, but don't count on any votes November 5th? Or is it actually going to impact turnout?
No, I think it is going to impact turnout. I think, again, because of those, there really are two groups within the Republican, even sort of the suburban Republicans. There are 2 or 3 groups that are in the Republican Party that have never voted for, many of them have never voted for a Democrat in their life. So for a Dick Cheney to not only say, I'm not going to vote for Trump, but to actually say, like, create a permission structure that says, you know what, this guy's so bad that I'm going to vote for Kamala Harris, for Liz Cheney to be doing that, for Adam Kinzinger, for Duncan in Georgia to be doing that.
Alberto
and I think we're going to see,
yes,
Alberto Gonzalez. I think we're going to see more of that. That's why I do think, that's what I'm saying. I always thought the original structure of the race was 53-46. I think she's going to get there because of it. That's what I'm saying. It's not, if it was just turn out your base, then look, I think we'd be trying to get to 51 or something. But I do think 52, 53, maybe even 54 is possible because of the courage, literally the courage, given how you're just purged out of that party if you come out against Trump right now, for these people to actually put their reputations on the line. And yeah, they may only move 2 points, but that could be a pretty critical. And Taylor Swift,
Sure.
you know, I mean, come on.
Don't underestimate her power.
Yeah, I sure. Hundreds of thousands of I
mean, she's no Kid Rock, but still.
But they're exactly. But they're registering. I mean, they're going to
40,000 of them.
And you know, when you're looking at places like Georgia, where we only won by 14,000 votes, or Pennsylvania by 44,000, could easily make the difference. That's why I think, Cheney, all these people are making a difference, and I think we'll see more of that.
What about George W. Bush? His office put out a statement saying he's not going to endorse. Isn't that kind of a chump move, given the stakes, given who else has endorsed and supporting her?
I've got mixed feelings about that. I mean, I understand, but he could be. I think the question is, the day after this election, when Donald Trump says it's all a lie, they stole the election, would we rather have George W. Bush or and some of these other, the Romneys of the world, come out than unity saying bullshit? But
that's assuming he will do that. To me, I see him just with a pair of jeans and some gloves clearing brush down there in Texas and not giving a shit, which kind of is on brand for G.W. Bush. Like, it just, I don't know. If you truly believe Donald Trump is the worst thing that ever happened to America, and that 2.0 would be just an existential threat to our democracy, why not endorse her? What does it cost you at this stage in your life?
No, I agree. And I don't understand the reluctance. The only, like I said, my only argument, I'm not trying to argue his, for him, because I haven't talked, obviously I'm not really close to George W. Bush, having run the Howard Dean campaign. But I and maybe it'll be timed later on before the election that he'll do it. That okay, that was too much.
Right.
Even I now. I mean, that's what I'm saying. I'm not sitting here in cement saying he's not going to do it. I think. I mean, you saw Karl Rove, I think, in the Wall Street Journal.
Sure, it was amazing.
Wrote a pretty incredible piece on why Trump failed and lost the debate, and why he has himself to blame, and isn't clearly Rove's not for Trump. I mean, that was what that piece said. So I don't know if within Bush world there's like a slow simmering
or just the
thing
world overall. I think you're right.
Yeah.
I think there are people like Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger, and to a lesser extent Jeff Duncan and others, Alberto Gonzalez, but people who really put their necks on the line and suffered great consequences for their early bravery. But I think you're right. I think over these next 2 months, especially if the politically expedient, opportunistic politicians and pundits or whatever start to smell a Trump defeat, they'll probably start lining up to get on the right side of history. I don't know how much at that point it will truly matter, because maybe they're just doing it when it doesn't matter anymore, because there's no risk.
That's what I'm saying. I'm not double guessing. I just think that we haven't seen the end of who comes aboard.
That's right.
And I do think some of them, like Taylor Swift, I mean, it was like incredible timing, right? I'm not talking Republicans now, but I mean, like, okay, she debate's over, bam, Taylor Swift comes out. I think we're going to see things like that with some names that we wouldn't expect, or that we already thought, no, well, they're not going to decide they're not going to do anything. Well, we'll see.
I want to see Tom Brady switch.
Yeah, I don't
know what needle that'll move, but it'll just be big. It'll piss the shit out of Trump. Joe, this was great. Appreciate the conversation. Do come back again before the election, and thanks for coming on.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for having me.
Take care. This episode of The Back Room was edited and produced by me, Andy Ostroy. It was co-edited and co-produced by Maddie Rosenberg, and co-produced by Jen Hammoud. Our theme song was composed by Andrew Hollander, and our logo was designed by Cricket Langell. And special thanks to Patricia Wind. Please take a moment to rate and review the podcast, and also follow or subscribe. Until next time, keep your eyes on Washington, Hollywood, and your own backyards, and have a great week.